Hi, I'm Tony Lacantro and I'm at the RIU Grand Final Week, almost there, shindig in Melbourne, and I'm joined today by Dan Madden, who's the Managing Director of Talisman Mining, code TLM. Hey Dan.
Thanks Tony.
Yeah, I believe I've followed Talisman for years and it was a case of drill some targets and nothing, and then suddenly there was a discovery in the Briar Basin, which is only really the second one outside of Sandfire's DeGrussa discovery, and I believe Sandfire bought that off you.
Yes, yeah. We originally had that asset back in 2009. We explored the asset ourselves, but it was very early on in the genesis of being a VMS copper gold discovery, so it was very expensive work with not a lot of data behind it. We spent that around $20 million on the project. Didn't have the, while it had the technical potential to carry on, the market for a junior support was not there. Sandfire hadn't found anything else either, and we entered into a joint venture with them to fund in $15 million of exploration. They spent $5 million and then discovered Monty. It's the second deposit in the region. We've funded the drill out of that deposit as a minority joint venture, made sure that we protected the value of that asset, stayed strong in that relationship as a junior, both in terms of size and our interest, and basically have taken ourselves through with financing to be able to take the project forwards in terms of be there as an operating partner, but also it means that it's important that we can extract the maximum value for a sale transaction. That's just recently been announced, $72.3 million of cash, which basically reflects above the NPV of the project, which you don't see very often, completely de-risked. Cash is coming into the company. We have a 1% NSR that is across 100% of the joint venture ground. That runs for perpetuity. The financing debt royalty that was a component of that was payable is being taken on by Sandfire. So we will be left with a clean company, exposure to any future discovery, $72.3 million cash. We'll return a large proportion of that after we've retired the debt.
Yep.
That's around about $55 million, give or take, depending on the exchange rate, because it's a US 13 million debt. That basically puts us in a pretty solid position and backs the current share price pretty much by cash.
Okay, so yeah, you are going to return some cash, but I guess new investors are saying, well, where's the upside now? And how are you going to transform Talisman again from an explorer to the next phase? So I believe you picked up some projects in New South Wales. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. Thanks very much. Basically, whilst Monty was being financed and obviously in development, it's a time for a junior where you've got very little capital. We didn't really want to dilute shareholders by going into a growth activity at that time. It was protecting the value of Monty. So we were looking for new projects that had potential to give us real leverage in the share price. That's back to exploration. Yeah. We didn't have the drill rigs turning because of the focus of the company on protecting capital. That meant that our geologists were able to do some really good research into potential projects. We identified geologically the Lock and Fold region in New South Wales. It's a very, very well mineralised region. We sit with a package of ground that's around 3,000 kilometres over what's called the Gilmore Suture. That's the deep plumbing system down into the mantle around the Lock and Fold. Very similar to what you see slightly to the west, maybe 50 to 100 k's to the west is the Rookery Fault, where all the Cobar mineralisation sits. The difference between Cobar and the Gilmore Suture region is that it's really been underexplored where we are. There's a lot of historic deposits. In the 1900s, there is lots and lots of shafts, lots of mineralisation around. But for various reasons it's really never been explored heavily, and certainly there's been very, very limited drilling in the last 30 to 40 years. So from an opportunity for us to get a new package of ground that we could get into while we were waiting for equity cash flow to come from Monty, we needed something that had a really good bang for the buck, allowed us to develop a project of our own. That rationale still stands, having made the transaction or about to make the transaction with Sandfire, except for now we have cash to be able to progress that a lot more aggressively than we'd like to. We also have the Sinclair nickel project as well.
Okay, so that provides the stability, but I guess a higher nickel price and the ability to fund it through, there's obviously going to be a capex component.
Yes. Look, it's with the infrastructure that exists at Sinclair, we bought that for $8 million from Glencore in 2014, and basically since I think about 3 months after we finalised the acquisition, the Monty deposit was discovered. So our capital had to be focused back into Monty to protect the value of what we knew. So there's been very little work done at Sinclair in terms of really unlocking the exploration potential, and the nickel price hasn't supported that. But where we're at the moment, we've got the EV market, there's a lot more interest around nickel, not necessarily reflected in nickel stocks, so we think we're still undervalued from that perspective. But we have $120 million of replacement capital. There's a processing plant, there's a runway, all of the infrastructure that we need is there to commence operations. We need the right nickel price on the nickel that we know is there, which is a continuation of the old nickel mine from 400 metres depth for about a kilometre. We know that's there. That needs a nickel price that's slightly different to where we're at, but it's a low cost, fast track return to production in the right nickel price environment. More importantly, it's the surrounding tenements that can unlock the value and can really change the nickel pricing that's required to really create value from this project. And on top of that, strategically, it's a processing plant in a region that is very strategically held for us. There's emerging nickel discoveries in and around the region, and there's a lot more interest now in nickel stocks and nickel projects. So we think that project, whilst we won't be putting significant amount of capital into it at these prices, has real potential to deliver value to shareholders.
So sounds like a great story, and thanks a lot.
No, thank you. Cheers.
Okay.